So this is a boss that I had a situation with Monster Hunter, Alatreon, and he is apparently very much hated in the Monster Hunter community. Now I was going to watch a video talking about this since that's the boss that I'm on right now. You guys ready? Let's do it.
This monster drove players in mass to review Bomb Monster Hunter World, and today I'm going to beat it. Well, let's start from the beginning. My original plan was to grow my master rank level, unlock Silver Rathalos for its critical element set, farm Kulvtaroth for its high elemental damage weapons, and then go and try to defeat Alatreon. However, I was looking at
Am I the only person that, like, whenever I am fighting a boss like Alatreon, I don't think about getting better gear. I think about, I'm bad. I got hit by that attack. I shouldn't have got hit by that attack. I need to get better at playing the game. Like, I don't have the mindset of getting better gear. I have the mindset of getting better.
Current gear and thought, you know what? This is
I think,
doable.
like, also, that's not really also a good mindset to have for Monster Hunter. Because I remember, like, whenever I did Volcana with and without Divine Blessing, like, doing it without Divine Blessing, I was mad. Like, bro, I was farming Volcana for this set to do Alatreon again. And I was like, I wasn't even paying attention. I was like, oh, I got hit by the breath again? Okay. And it would do like this much of my health. I didn't even care.
Now, I originally planned for this specific episode to come out a lot closer to defeating Fatalis. You know, one of the final parts of my journey. But me being me, I had to try it. And so off I went with my less than optimal build in hand, and I failed the quest. A lot. I was going to give up for the time being, as I didn't even plan to be here in the first place. However, I remembered all the non-elemental, beating it without armor, or even high-rank weapon challenge runs. It got me thinking, this is a skill issue. Let's just keep practicing. Before we get to the conclusion
it is a skill issue, and you can, the thing is that you can, so you have to get to 100%. And you can get to 100% with skill, and you can get to about probably 60% with gear. But, like, usually overcoming a fight is a combination of preparation and skill. Gear is the preparation, skill is avoiding the red things.
Short story. I should explain more of the Alatreon fight in more detail. Now, this is a unique hunt with a unique mechanic that might confuse or at the very least frustrate new players. This mechanic is what drove many players to lose their mind and begin writing a slew of negative words towards it via the Steam reviews. And elemental DPS check. Alatreon has an ultimate named Eschaton Judgment, which he will perform every 7 minutes or so. Within this time frame, you must deal a certain amount of elemental damage. You'll know you've done this as the following will happen.
He falls over,
Reaching this threshold will reduce the damage of Alatreon's ultimate, allowing the player to survive it, assuming the proper use of healing items anyway. You can further weaken the ultimate an additional 2 times, however, the threshold of elemental damage
I think that there's three thresholds, right? There's insta-kill, survive, and easy.
To do so incrementally increases each time. As I'm sure many of you will already know, failing to meet this check results in an unavoidable one-shot. A quick side note actually on that, it is technically possible to cheese this ultimate and survive the blast, as tested by Team Darkside. However, 99% of players won't be performing that strategy. It's ludicrous. Naturally, this dragon has a couple extra tricks up its sleeve to make meeting the DPS check a bit more difficult. Firstly, Alatreon will inflict Dragon Blight with its dragon attacks. Makes sense. If you weren't aware, this status effect prevents...
I'm gonna say it doesn't make sense. You fight other dragons, they don't inflict Dragon Blight. Why does he inflict Dragon Blight? They do? I never had it.
You from dealing elemental damage. You see the annoyance here, right? On top of needing to heal whenever you take damage, which in itself takes time away from your DPS window, you must also consume a Nullberry or another item such as Dragonproof Mantle to clear the effect if you wish to get to the next phase without carting. The second primary mechanic in this fight, however, revolves around its horns. Now, depending on which quest you take, Alatreon will begin the fight in either fire or ice as its active element. You can refer to Alatreon's wiki page to confirm this
Yeah,
without having
the normal
to go
one
into
is
the
fire
quest and
first.
check yourself. If you know it will begin the quest in fire element, you will want to bring an ice elemental weapon, as
Sure.
it would have a 3-star weakness to it. Likewise, if it began the quest with ice element, you would take a fire weapon to the hunt. Here's where it gets tricky. Roughly 3 minutes into the hunt, Alatreon will swap element to dragon. Whilst and only in this dragon state, the player becomes able to break its horns. Why is this important? Well, doing so prevents Alatreon from continuing to cycle into the next element, which would render itself immune to the damage you entered the quest with. For clarity, let's assume Alatreon began the quest with fire as its active element. As a result of this, you brought an ice weapon with you to capitalize.
To be fair, I think that this is kind of an annoying gimmick. Like, that part of it is kind of an annoying gimmick. I think it is.
On the weakness. After 3 minutes, it would cycle to dragon, and if you fail to break its horns within this time frame, Alatreon would then cycle into ice element, become immune to your ice damage, thus making it impossible to meet the DPS check, and inevitably it will kill you. However, if you did break the horns in this example, Alatreon would then cycle back to the beginning into its fire element, which would give you, the player, more time to meet the elemental DPS check and ultimately better odds at surviving its Eschaton judgment. Now, please bear in mind that you can only break the horns twice. After this, you won't be able to prevent it from cycling to your poor matchup anymore. However, if you're dealing enough damage to Alatreon, it should be close to going down by this point in any case. While all of that may sound complicated, in essence, the hunt is very straightforward. Take the right weapon into the hunt, break its horns when possible, and repeat the cycle until it goes down. And that's...
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as, like, a lot of fights in games. Like, you have to have the right gear, you go in, you do the mechanics, you kill the boss. Like, I don't really think this is that complex. Like, it's really not. It's just that, like, it's hard. Like, he does a lot of damage. That's it. Like, I mean, fuck.
Exactly what I did. Finally, after multiple hours of attempting the hunt, I finally managed to get the job
Got
done.
his ass.
For 100% transparency, I just want to make clear that this is not the original footage of the original kill, as I didn't record it. I wanted to make sure, however, to get a kill with it with that same equipment, except for the weapon, which would have been an ice variant, just to show players that it is possible to beat it without having the 100% optimal setup. Before now, I had only beat Alatreon maybe 2 or 3 times in multiplayer hunts, and that was with the longsword, so this kill was very special to me. I've since took him down over a dozen times solo, and what...
Yeah, I only want to kill him solo. Like, because to me, if I'm killing him with a group, the odds are that the people in my group are going to be better than me because they're still playing this game that came out 6 years ago, right? So it's like if I beat it in a group, I am probably just going to be carried. And also, like, the truth is that, yeah, obviously if you don't meet the elemental check, you, like, insta-wipe whenever he has, like, one of the judgments, right? But other than that, like, having the boss not target you, or only target you, let's say, 25% of the time, that's insane. That's like fighting with 2 other Palicos.
Was originally such a stern obstacle is now
Makes it easier, yeah, it does.
Quite a trivial hunt. But what about the negative reviews Alatreon caused? What
Yeah.
do I think? I understand where that criticism came from. Players were ultimately upset that this isn't a fight you can just stick out to the bitter end, you know? Even if the hunt takes 40 minutes to complete, so long as the player doesn't cart 3 times and fail the quest, they should be able to keep trying. This hunt in particular, however, says no. If you want to beat me, you're going to have to play efficiently, and if you don't do enough damage in these short time frames...
I think, like, this is just the way that this fight is. Like, I don't think every fight needs to be like that. I mean, most fights are like that, but, like, it's not a bad thing to have a couple of DPS check bosses. Like, what's wrong with that? It's not... It's like, is it frustrating? Is it hard? Yeah, it's hard. It definitely is hard. But just because something's hard doesn't make it bad. Like, in my opinion, which bosses do I think are actually bad? Like, do I not like... I don't like Anjanath. in Monster Hunter. I think it's a bad boss. I don't like the way it moves. But like, I don't think that this boss has any problematic movement. You know what I mean? Like, Kushaladora, yeah, it's Kushaladora, like, in my opinion, how is it that you hate this boss, but you not... Like, Kushaladora, in my opinion, is, like, way more fucking annoying than this boss. I hated that fight.
You're just going to lose. And maybe this is just me coming in as a new generation Monster Hunter player, but I actually really like this hunt. Everything I just explained is why I think it's great for the game. Alatreon pushes the hunter to plan accordingly, learn the mechanics, and play well, which, in my opinion, perfectly captures...
It's an end-game boss. Like, of course it's gonna be hard. Fucking duh. Like, yeah.
The nature of the formula, I understand and empathise that, in a way, this hunt in particular might prevent a percentage of players from truly experiencing everything the game has to offer, but with it releasing,
it doesn't prevent anybody from it. It's just you have to beat it, and if you don't, then you don't. That's fine. If you don't want to get the set of gear to do it, you don't have to do the fight. There's like an easy mode version of the fight that you can do if you just want to clear it and move on. What's the problem? Like, really?
Far into Iceborne's life cycle, near enough at the end of it, I think this monster's a great addition to the game and offers a unique challenge for adept players who are looking to scratch that itch. I understand some of you might not fundamentally agree with me on this, and that's okay. You only need to take a look at the World versus Rise arguments to see how different players' perspectives are on how the game should be and what it should look like. Please leave a comment down below to share your thoughts on Alatreon. Do you think this monster has a place in the game? Anyway,
yeah.
I'll see you next time.
Yeah, why would people complain about that? I don't understand. Like, to me, like, this is my perspective on, like, bosses. I think that bad bosses and good bosses exist separately from the spectrum of, like, quality. So, for example, like, a really bad boss doesn't function well and has hitboxes that aren't accurate. That's what makes a bad boss. If a boss is really, really hard, that doesn't make the boss bad. That just makes it really, really hard. So there was a tweet that was made. I guess, did this person block me? Oh no, I think I've been blocked by this individual. I've been blocked. But they made a tweet complaining about me playing Monster Hunter the wrong way. And so this is what this has 18,000 likes. There's a lot of people that are mad because I was not playing the game the way that they thought that I should be playing the game. Reminds me of whenever Asmongold got to Alatreon, he reads the entire tutorial out loud, went into the quest, spends almost 2 hours without even knowing he's doing 0 elemental damage because he has Dragon Blight, even though the handler keeps yelling, you have Dragon Blight. Well, I don't know what the indicator for Dragon Blight is. So what are these two indicators right here? The sword up and the green up here. These are buffs. So attack up and defense up. I am used to games separating buffs and debuffs, where buffs and debuffs are located in different places, rather than having them all consolidated, because I find that to be confusing. Also, there's no, like, indicator that this buff is applied to your character in the same way that, for example, if you're on fire, your character's on fire, your health bar goes red. Dragon Blight doesn't work that way. And I don't know how exactly to make that work, but I do think that it is a shortcoming of the UI to categorize buffs and debuffs in the same bucket. I do. I think that's bad, and it could be better. And I hope that in Monster Hunter Rise, not Worlds, Wilds, Monster Hunter Wilds, I hope that it is better, because it's confusing. So yeah, that's number one. When in the quest models 2 hours during Dragon Blight damage, you have Dragon Blight. So people are unhappy because I didn't know what Dragon Blight was. I want to express my mindset going into a situation like this. The majority of information that the NPCs tell you is not completely accurate. There are things that they tell you that you need to do that you don't actually need to do. It's just that it makes the fight easier, or it makes the fight work in a certain way. So if you've played through the entire game, and the NPCs are constantly yelling at you to do certain things, well then, it's hard to understand what that actually means. Do you actually have to do it, or not? Second thing, let's talk about build-up. Now, generally with games, frost damage, whenever you have, for example, the Frostcraft, is applied to it does a proportion of your melee damage as frost damage. Is that correct? No, how does it work? It's not actually ice damage. It's a raw multiplier. It's a flat boost to elemental damage. It increases damage by a percentage. Frostcraft is a damage multiplier. It is a damage multiplier, but that damage multiplier is converted in terms of ice damage, right? So you're telling me Frostcraft gives you an increase in raw damage. Let me look this up. Is the skill and monster so set bonus Velkhana Divinity? An aura of frost builds when your weapon is sheathed, raising attack. Now, logically, I would assume that an aura of frost that makes your attack go higher would make you deal more frost damage. Like, this is the logical assumption that a person could make. And I do not think that this is stupid to make this jump. This is a logical assumption to make because most other video games function this way. And also, because there is no combat log, there is no way to really determine what percentage of your damage is actually increased by Frostcraft or not, unless you played the game a long time. And so, there's that. Also, with Dragonblight, news promoted, F extra life, big mistake, dude. Yeah, I mean, who cares? It's just trying to read something, right? That's it. Frostcraft, yes, raw damage. The 2 set is crit for elemental. The third thing I want to talk about is Dragonblight. Or sorry, is Blastblight. Because people were criticizing me because I was using Blastblight damage. Logically, blast damage should be an element. It should be. Because blasts are created through compression and through pressure. And they create combustion. And combustion is through fire. And fire is an element. Also, whenever I look at a Blastblight explosion, it is identical to fire. If you ask somebody, what element is this? 100 people out of 100 people would tell you that it is fire. There is no logical reason that Blastblight would not be an elemental effect that would contribute to the damage taken for Alatreon's bar to reduce the eschaton damage. Under every single logical assumption that is known to physics, it would. It's still asking for ice, though? It doesn't ask for ice. It asks for an element that's not being used by Alatreon. And his elemental affinity changes. Grenades are not fire? Well, that's because grenades are two separate things. There's a combustion of the grenade, but then there's also shrapnel of the grenade. So logically, it would make sense that it would do raw damage and also fire damage in a component-based breakdown. That's the way it would work logically. And so people always criticize me, saying that I'm stupid. I don't think about things the same way that other people think about things. And the way that I think about things is not wrong. I am an incredibly logical thinker, and if things don't make sense to me, it's hard for me to understand them. And I think that on this boss, I did not make any logical leaps or not understand something. This is intentionally misleading. It's not intentionally, it is misleading. It is misleading and confusing. There are always people that like telling you what you should do because they've played the game for 200 hours. One thing that I have learned over the years is that all of the people who think that they're good at video games are they're only thinking that because that's the only game they play. And if I got to watch a new player, and I have played WoW for long enough to know that most people that talk shit on the internet are fucking garbage. And if you got to watch them play a new game, figure new stuff out, they would look even dumber than you are. I asked the same last question 12 years ago playing Monster Hunter. You're on the same path? Yeah, and it makes sense. Alatreon is a very bold boss, brought back. If you didn't play a game for 10 years, it's very different and misleading, if anything else in the game. I think the boss is great. It's a great boss. There's nothing wrong with the boss. But these mechanics are misleading. And it is confusing. It does explain in the Hunter's Note. One of the good things about Monster Hunter is that a lot of the things in the game you can understand by just understanding things intuitively. Like if you attack from, if you do a lunge attack, it does more damage because you have the force and the velocity of falling downward. If you hit them in the head, it does more damage because their head takes more damage. If you hit them, if you weaken a spot on their body, that spot takes more damage because it's been weakened. If you hit their tail a lot, it cuts their tail off. So there are a lot of things in Monster Hunter that make sense intuitively. And I think that's what makes it a great game. I don't think that it's a good thing whenever mechanics go against established logical physics. Because it's confusing to an average person. To be honest, asking for too much logical stuff in Alatreon is one of the two super bosses with specific mechanics. Logic's relevant because the game establishes its own rules. As long as they communicate them well, it's fine. Now, that might not be the case in this game. I don't know. I think there's, like, even then, I feel like there's, like, why have a confusing mechanic? Like, I don't know. Games are kind of intricate to master. It's a good thing. I think that it's a good thing that games are intricate to master, too. Absolutely. But my point is that I think that the criticisms and things that I'm saying about this game are real and genuine. I don't think that I'm wrong about anything that I'm saying here. There is no advantage to consolidating buffs and debuffs. There is no logical reason that an average player would be able to intuitively understand that Blast Blight doesn't have the same elemental properties as fire or ice. I think these are just objectively true things. And of course there's going to be people that have played Monster Hunter for 1,000 hours that say, no, that's not the case. But I'm speaking as a new player. Blast is not an element, it's a status. But being on fire is a status. And fire is an element. Fire Blight and Blast Blight. Fire is a status. Fire Blight is a status and not a fire. And what... mental gymnastics. This is crazy, guys. Absolutely crazy. Are these meaningful distinctions, or are we just being obtuse? It's not. It's just stupid. And this is coming as somebody who's I love this game. I think this is a great game. But there are things about it that are confusing and hard to understand. And they don't need to be like that. Alatreon isn't noob-friendly. Well, it shouldn't be noob-friendly. Like, if you're fighting this boss, you've been playing the game for probably 50 hours. It's not for noobs. It's a hard boss. Like, fuck. Like, what is this? There's the video. That's a good video. I think that's fair.